You are only seeing things through your very privileged perspective that doesn't see how...
Because I'm a white male, is that what makes me privileged?
You do have historical and current privilege. I'm not saying that you are actively going forth and working to oppress people, although you are. I am saying...
By saying we shouldn't sterilize and mutilate kids, I'm oppressing them?
You're not...
We're being booed by people for making this pretty basic claim. Why do you think people disagree with that?
Because most people are idiots.
What's going on, everyone? James Klug here. Today I am joined by Billboard Chris and Mike Harlow in Philadelphia, and we're going to be talking to people about how children cannot consent to puberty blockers. Gentlemen, are you ready to get going?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to rock it. We're here on the Rocky Steps, and we're going to have a phenomenal day.
Let's go talk to some people. Huge shout out to Ruthless Americans for sponsoring this video. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. You agree with this?
Yes.
Do you agree or disagree?
A little both.
Oh yeah, completely.
You guys agree with it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
You guys.
Why F us?
Because it is really... Don't videotape me. I did not consent to be videotaped.
Okay.
Zero interest in talking to you.
Zero interest?
Absolutely
We're
not.
talking about sterilizing kids. That's kind of important, isn't it?
You probably shouldn't put people off and tell them to F off if you don't want to
You're
be
walking
by
around
people
with hate
camera.
speech.
What is hate speech about this?
Because you're actively promoting anti-trans agenda by walking around with that. Like, you know what you're doing.
Okay. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. Children under the age of 18. You disagree with this sign?
I 100% disagree with the sign.
Right.
It is really critical to trust people at any age that they know what's going
Any
on.
age.
Yeah.
Mind if I ask you why?
I think some kids are too young to understand it.
Yeah.
I also think that some kids that are a little bit more mature, 15, 16, 17-year-old, they do understand it, and I think they have a right to choose. Well, there you go.
Yeah. I don't believe in ageism. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to sex? Do you believe in ageism? Do you believe that children can consent to sex with adults?
Not with adults.
Why not?
Okay, we're talking about different things. So ageism as in that adults have all of the accumulated knowledge that ever needs to be had
Right.
versus children.
That's a good point.
That is what I'm talking about. Like, adults do not have all the accumulated knowledge. I don't agree with that. Like,
Children cannot consent to puberty blockers.
Children, they have no state of mind yet. They get what but they get fed by guardians and parents and whatnot. Society and social media, all that bullcrap.
We're being booed by people for making this pretty basic claim. Why do you think people disagree with that?
Because most people are idiots.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because they say that we're the radical ones and they're trying to mutilate children.
Her stance was that 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they know what they want, younger doesn't. Why do you say so? Why the difference there?
I think that they should have a little bit more time to comprehend the things in life and how they really truly feel.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, so there's a friend of mine, her name's Chloe Cole.
Oh, sorry.
She's been speaking out about this all across the country. She has autism, like almost half of these kids do, statistically speaking. And at 13, she was put on puberty blockers and testosterone. At 15, she was given a double mastectomy. I think it was just 11 months later, she had deep regrets. She'd suffered other abuse as well, as many of these kids have. And now, she doesn't have her breasts. She's not sure if she can have kids because of the effects of testosterone. Some 16-year-olds are much more mature than others, but they're still children. Their brains, the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for logical decision-making, doesn't finish fully forming until 25. I know when I was 16, I may not look like the smartest person on the street, but I did okay in school. But man, the stuff I did when I was 16 and still at 20, like most people, I did a lot of dumb things.
I'm 47, I still do dumb things.
Yeah, now we expect kids who've struggled with who knows what trauma or abuse, or they have other mental health comorbidities. We expect these kids to be able to make lifelong, permanent decisions to their fertility, to their future sex life, and they're irreversibly harming their bodies. So, I don't know, I still think 15 or 16 or 17 is very young.
I think that it shouldn't be just something that you should just on a whim do something. I think there should be, just like any other mental health aspect, you should talk to somebody, you should understand all the aspects of it. I'm not saying just go run to the doctors because you're 16 years old and go, oh, look, this is what I want to do today.
We trust children to know what's best for them in your first argument. But now when it comes to sex, children don't have the accumulated knowledge. You acknowledge that. So you're saying children can change sex, but they can't have sex. Why is
You
that
are
different
doing
standard?
the hate group thing where you're mishmashing predatory things with kids understanding their own genders and their own identities. Predatory sexual behavior is not the same thing as people being trans. They are different things. You cannot put them in the same group.
I'd say indoctrinating children to believe that they're born in the wrong body and that they need to change their body to find true happiness. I'd say that's a pretty predatory
No
thing.
one is being indoctrinated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't you think it's predatory, though, to, for example, give a double mastectomy to a 12, 13-year-old girl?
I don't think it's predatory
You
because
think that's
like
okay?
people have to go through a lot of counseling in order to get to that point.
Not so much anymore.
I disagree with you. I know a lot of trans kids.
How old are they?
That's none of your business.
Well, you brought it up.
All right, you guys, let's take a few moments to welcome a new sponsor, the people that made this video possible, Ruthless Americans. Ruthless Americans is a blue-collar clothing brand for the hardworking American that isn't afraid to show their love of our country. Is that not incredibly refreshing? Their clothing is high quality, it's durable. I'm wearing their American Pride line right now, and just the fit is absolutely perfect. I'm very picky about that, so it's good to see that it's spot on. But I want to show you guys some of their other collections. This is their 1776 collection. I'll definitely be wearing this one in more videos. We have their brand new Just Pray collection and their incredibly popular Save Our Children collection. 10% of sales from this collection is donated to their partners over at Operation Underground Railroad to fight child trafficking. These are just a few of the great designs available at Ruthless Americans. Each one of these collections includes hoodies, long sleeve and short sleeve tees, hats, tank tops, and more. Ruthless Americans is a small patriotic business. I've spoken with the owner multiple times. He's a great guy that loves our country. You guys, this is a business that I'm really proud to support. Go pick up a few shirts or hats or hoodies from them. I promise you, you will love them. Visit ruthlessamericans.com or hit that link down in the description below and use offer code Klug15 for 15% off at checkout. Again, that's ruthlessamericans.com. Offer code Klug15 for 15% off at checkout. Let's get back in the video.
It's interesting to talk about the process. Chris, could you maybe weigh in a little bit about the process
Yeah,
there?
there should be a process, and almost everyone thinks there is one because there used to be.
I don't think there is right now.
The
though.
practice today is to even suggest therapy for these kids, according to the activists, the hardcore activists that push this, to even suggest that therapy or time is needed is to invalidate the person's gender identity.
Honestly, I think everybody should go to therapy. But
Yeah, especially before we do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Last year in Milwaukee, they had a Pride event, and a psychologist set up a tent there with a sandwich board outside saying, trans or non-binary, 3 letters of recommendation for surgery. All you had to do was walk up to this psychologist and they'll just rubber stamp your letter that you need to go get surgery. I know other kids who've called in over the phone to telehealth in order to get the recommendations that we need. We've got Jamie Reed, who is married to a trans man. She calls herself a queer woman. She worked at the Washington University Transgender Clinic in St. Louis for 4 years as case manager. She quit in November. She says the kids that come in to their gender clinic there, they send them to a therapist that they know will simply rubber stamp the letter that's needed for surgery. And if a child happens to come in from some outside therapist who doesn't think this is the right course of action, they'll send them to an in-house psychologist or psychiatrist who they know will then rubber stamp it. There are no safeguards anymore for these kids. And to even suggest that these children need therapy is to invalidate their gender identity. And so the trend is no therapy at all. It's like what you said in your first argument, children know what's best for them, and they don't dare to question anything anymore. They start them on puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and refer them for surgeries right away. What do you think of that?
I think you have not even close to completely full information. Maybe that is a sliver of what is going on, but the great majority of trans kids do have tons of conversations with the adults in their lives. Rarely is something done immediately. I know a lot of trans kids and on the non-binary spectrum, and very, very, very rarely do you do something when you're under 18 that is not easily reversible, like puberty blockers, which are easily reversible,
Yeah.
because you can stop taking them and then
How many
puberty
of these kids
happens
do you think
again.
stop taking them?
Some of them do.
So
Yeah.
the statistics on this are 98% of children who start on puberty blockers progress to cross-sex hormones, because you're not just signing them up for puberty blockers. These kids are committed to this whole pathway. They're told that first, they need to stop their bodies from developing because it would be too traumatic for them to appear like their actual sex. It would be traumatic for a young girl to develop into a woman. Well, you can stop talking to us if you want.
You want to stop talking to us? You were the one that flipped us off. You were the one that flipped us off. That's why we came over
you're
here.
walking around with like a hate speech billboard.
Right, but pretty reasonable that we came over here to talk to you after you flipped us off, correct? So if you didn't want the attention, you should have given it to us.
I asked multiple times not to video record me. Like, people go after people online and destroy their lives.
You're in public. We're having very respectful conversations. We don't need to talk to you. You don't need to talk to us. Is that cool?
But I asked multiple times to not video record me.
The Attorney General of Missouri, for example, laid out this process. I think it was over a period of 2 years. There should be at least, I think he said, 15 separate appointments first to discuss these various things. And that was even for adults. But for kids, yeah, there should be a long process because who knows what's going on with these kids? It could be anything.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
And I mean,
So we agree on that point for sure.
And do you mind if I ask you really quick? I mean, we started off with this conversation saying 15, 16, 17. After hearing what he's talking about right there, change your mind a little bit there, maybe?
No.
Like I just said, you don't need to talk to us. You continue talking to us, so we're staying here. Do you understand?
I think it is really awful that
And it's good
there's
that we talk
a
about it.
sliver of a group of people that are. Do you know how many
Trying to stop kids
trans
from being
kids commit suicide
sterilized?
because they can't figure themselves out?
So you've told me
It's
the
not
two
true.
lies that activists always say. They only ever have two things to say, and they're both false. The first one is that puberty blockers are reversible. Well, how's time reversible? If a kid goes on puberty blockers from 12 to 17, is there some time machine where they get to go back to being 12 again? Of course not. And the other lie, and it's really despicable and coercive and manipulative of you to say so, is that kids are going to kill themselves if we don't let them transition. Guess what? Humans have been on this planet for about 200,000 years. They've been going through puberty just fine. Kids weren't killing themselves because they were growing up. Puberty is not a medical condition.
You are only seeing things through your very privileged perspective that doesn't see
Just because I'm a
how
white male, is that what makes me privileged?
you do have historical and current privilege.
I think
Still
that
no?
there should be an avenue for kids to explore the things that are in their minds, and if they go, I think, like I said, that there should be some kind of a mental health tract for them to go through, and if they really do go through this and this is really something that they want to do, then they should be able to do it.
What's the harm in waiting until 18, for example?
That's I mean, I've seen some 18-year-olds that act like 6-year-olds. I've seen some 15 and 16-year-olds that act like 40-year-olds that have a better head on their shoulders than some of these people that are on the street every day.
Go through these waste of sperm.
So you think we should try to change the sex of kids, eh?
So here's why I agree with this. I'm a mother of 4, and I think children, there's a lot of things they can't consent to that we all agree on. They can't consent to getting married. They can't consent to signing up for the military. They can't consent to getting a tattoo. These are all, and we all kind of agree that these are things that children are not equipped emotionally or mentally to understand long-term consequences. So we don't allow them to do that. So to me, a puberty blocker is something that will create long-term changes and issues for the child that they might one day regret. And we protect our kids from making all kinds of decisions in other areas, but this one, a lot of people want to give them the green light, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, you think about it. We're responsible for our kids' health care, until they're 18, right? You're not considered an adult till you're 18, so why should they be allowed to have all these puberty blockers, gender changes? I don't know.
I have 4 kids, 18, 22, 24, and 27.
Oh, so they probably just missed out on all the indoctrination now. Oh, lucky.
Yeah, but
No, because it's probably something they would encounter if they were a little bit younger.
For sure. And honestly, I've told my husband, if my kids were young now, I'd be homeschooling them, because I just think the nonsense that's going on in public schools, I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night knowing that's what they're getting during the day, and that's a shame.
I think when I was like 16, 17, I just wanted to be David Bowie. So I think if I were that age now, I'd be put on all this.
Right. I agree. So I commend you guys for what you're doing. It's hard to come out publicly and stand up for something that might not be popular in the crowd you're in, and so I think you're doing a nice job.
Someday you guys will touch a girl. It'll happen, guys.
I'm gay. That's very homophobic of you.
Hey, man,
I'm gay. Why do I want a female to love me?
No need for the homophobia, sir.
I'm not saying that you are actively going forth and working to oppress people, although you are. I am
By saying we
saying
shouldn't sterilize and mutilate kids, I'm oppressing them.
you're not.
How is it not
you.
sterilizing them?
I mean,
Well, just
people
prove them
have-
wrong. Why don't you just educate them?
If you
You know what I
think
mean?
that people are just there to like put forward and be baby making factories, then maybe in your head that's what it is, but people are so much more than that, and most trans adults wish that they could have changed puberty at when they were initially going into puberty.
Why?
Because then there's always going to be traits in adulthood that are going to be corresponded to a different gender.
Like what?
Things that the world looks at and says
So
maybe
aesthetics.
is more.
So I don't think that it's right to sterilize a child, cut apart children over aesthetics, over looks.
I
You
mean,
know that that's not right.
And let's talk about this.
I don't think that we are like destroying children because they remove or change a particular aspect. That is not what I think is destroying. I think what you're doing is destroying like the soul of people and making people at so much more risk of being persecuted and denied rights and denied to be allowed to like exist in the world.
So little girls, you think, have a right to double mastectomies. At what age?
Well, one, I disagree with your gendering, and two, I think that is up to the adults
Wait,
in
why
their
do you
lives.
disagree with the gendering? What do you mean?
Because you just said little girls, and if somebody
Oh
is
my
so,
God.
I think you are misgendering people that are coming out as trans and moving forward. Like, and
Oh, you mean
also,
those girls are actually little boys, is what you mean.
I don't know what their identity is, and neither do you.
This condition's called gender dysphoria.
Mhm.
This intense loathing, basically. Historically, according to all the academic studies, before we gave kids puberty blockers, more than 80% of them grew out of it when they went through puberty, and a majority actually grew up to be gay. So, one demographic that's really being harmed by this are kids who grow up to be gay. Effeminate little boys, it's not a big surprise. Yeah, some of them grow up to be gay, but now they're being told that just because they're effeminate, because they don't conform to these regressive stereotypes, that maybe they were born in the wrong body. I think ideologically this whole thing is based on a lie, and we have this explosion of kids today
I
who are
don't.
believing
I
in
mean,
this.
I don't agree with they were born in the wrong body. My
Yeah.
brother's 3 years older than I am. He grew up putting on my mom's shoes, and he's the straightest man you ever met.
It's a good thing he's not a kid today. They would have sent him for some of this.
This is true, probably. But I mean, if parents are open to allowing their kids to explore what's makes them happy, little kids, if a little boy wants to play with a Barbie doll, knock yourself out. If a little girl wants to play with a honky truck, knock yourself out. You want to go play football in the dirt? Go do you.
Right.
I
This
mean,
is what I say all
It
the
seems
time.
very reasonable right there. That seems very reasonable. What seems not as reasonable is you want to go make life-altering decisions under the age of 18, knock yourself out. Let's get a couple therapy sessions and stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You agree?
That there should be some kind of a therapy session to validate some of the things that they're feeling and make sure that it's that way.
So that seems to be really where she's focused
totally
on.
reasonable.
More therapy, but under the age of 18, still more therapy. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, for me, it's an absolute no kids. I think even for young adults, we should still be doing therapy on young adults. Tons of these people who are detransitioning today started as adults because who knows what's going on in their life, and now they have deep regrets.
I also think that some people do it as a fad, as oh look, this is what I want to do today. I don't think that's okay.
Trans trender, they're calling it.
There you go. I like it.
So, when we know that more than 80% of these kids with gender dysphoria will simply grow out of it, and a lot of them grow up to be gay, what the heck are we doing stopping their physical development and sterilizing these kids who are just going to be happy, healthy gay men and women?
What do you think about that?
One, there are so many more statistics and studies, and a ton of experts believe that you should support trans folks in their journeys. You are thinking through one very tiny sliver. And also, I do not believe that sexuality and gender are the same thing, and you are conflating them, which I disagree with. And also, like, I think I know people.
Really quick, how did
I
he
know
conflate them?
people who do detransition,
not
and
gonna
they
answer
feel
that one.
fine about it.
They feel fine about it.
They
So you
feel
think-
fine about it.
So after a 13-year-old had her breasts removed, before they even developed, just removed, she'll be fine with that the rest of her life.
I can't speak to each individual person, and
But
I
you
would
just said they're
personally
fine
love
with
to
it.
break down
Would you be
gender
fine with
more.
that? I wouldn't be.
you don't know what they're going to feel because you
I think
probably,
I do.
No, you don't.
I
Because
kinda do.
you probably identify with the gender you were assigned at birth, so you don't know what they feel.
There's no such thing as gender assigned at birth, and there's no such thing as a transgender child. They're called boys
Well,
and
we
girls.
have huge disagreements, and I grew up in the South. I have people that I love that have huge disagreements with me, but they do not go around actively putting forth hate speech in the world.
What's hateful about this?
You know what you're doing.
Well, what's
No,
hateful
You're
about it?
going out there to try and talk actively against people being trans when you should just say it's okay for people to explore themselves.
You're ignoring the basis for the conversation, and that's
I'm
children.
done now.
They're removing so many barriers, and what I really object to is these things being pushed and being called LGBT rights when it goes against gay people time and time again.
Look, I don't. So my other half at this point is a woman. I love her to death. She identifies as straight, and it is. I mean, it is what it is. I don't put a label on things. I can't stand when people peg me into this is what you are or this is what you do.
Right.
I grew up dating guys, girls. It didn't matter to me as long as I fell in love with a person. So, you want to grow your hair long, knock yourself out. You want to put it in pigtails like Pippi Longstocking? Do you? I don't care. I shouldn't judge you for that because there's way more things that I could be judged for than that. So.
Yeah, sexuality exists. It's measurable.
Mm-hmm.
Gender identity is an ideology with no real basis to it at all. I think we should abolish it completely because there's no right way to be a boy or a girl, and that's what this is teaching them.
Exactly.
So it's just nonsense.
Well, we've mentioned the gingerbread man before, and it breaks down all these things and says, you might be this. And it's like, no, you might just be a different kind of girl. Maybe you're a gay girl. Right. But you might just maybe a little bit more of a tomboy. They're describing personality traits and saying that it's some ideal or gender, it's some form of gender, and that's just not the case.
You're absolutely correct.
It is on your head if I get doxxed by horrific people. That's not what
The only violence
happens.
that ever gets committed with respect to this subject comes from the trans activists towards people like us. You don't need
That
to
is
worry about
not
it.
true.
Really?
Like, people
have
that are
videos that show
oppressed
I've had
are
my arm
going
broken, I've been
through
assaulted
so
probably
much
40
horrific
times.
things. Well, look,
I haven't seen one video of
So
the trans
he
activists
deserved
ever
it.
getting attacked.
It's what he was wearing.
I've never seen video of trans
that
activists
is a
getting attacked.
ridiculous thing to conflate to
Well, you
what
just said
to what
because-
femme people
What
go
are
through.
femme people?
Feminine people, women, people that go throughout the world and the patriarchy oppresses them. That is a ridiculous thing that you just conflated.
Patriarchy.
Of course.
Patriarchy, white supremacy.
Best of luck with the ideology.
Every
Thank you.
possible social justice warrior activist talking point.
The white cisgender.
She went down the list and just called us everything.
Hey, thank you so much for talking with us today. Really appreciate you. Were super respectful and really a great conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we
I
did.
did. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
But
you
thanks a
rock.
lot, man.
What was your name?
Tony.
You disagree with the sign?
I'm not we don't want to be participating.
No?
Nope.
Boo? Flip us off? We can't talk to you though?
Yep.
Why do you agree with this, would you say?
Well, I think it's ruining our country, and I'm for it. We need more people like yourself and more awareness because we got to get this country back to what our founders wanted.
We've gone so far from the ideals which formed this country, and we need to speak up because there's a new war going on. It's not a war being fought in the trenches, it's a war being fought in schools and on social media that's harming our kids. And it's every bit as important as any other war we fought because they're coming for our kids.
I agree. We're from Florida, so we're passing laws.
Every most sensible person who comes along is always from Florida.
Well, we love Philadelphia too. This is a beautiful city.
It's a beautiful city.
And get back on track.
There's a lot of people that actually do agree with this sign in Philly. We've already spoken with a handful of them. Some people are on the fence, some people don't understand it, and some people are obviously wildly against it. When did you guys start to hear about this happening? Chris asked this question earlier. When did you start to hear about this happening just in general?
Well, we were made aware of it in Florida because our governor was really against it and on top of it and passed laws, and we had a proactive governor.
Where are you located? Are you from around here or no?
I'm French. I'm
French.
In France, the ideology has been also rising over the last years. So now it's starting in France as well. I was Prime Minister and Minister of Education is called Pape Ndiaye, and he studied it at the University of Virginia, where he became woke completely brainwashed, and he's now our education minister. So that's pretty bad. I think it's something we should fight all the way along the world. I mean, especially in the Western world, yes.
All right, everyone, that is it for today. So we ended up traveling around town talking to people about how children cannot consent to puberty blockers. First, Mike, how do you think the conversations went today?
It was amazing. We're the majority. Most people agree with us, and we're just going to keep proving that.
It's very cool. And where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media?
You can find me on YouTube at Mike Harlow or Twitter at Not Mike Harlow.
Very cool. Chris, how do you think the conversations went today?
Phenomenal as always. One conversation at a time. We are going to stop this child abuse, my man.
Absolutely. And where can people find you on social media and supporting your work?
Twitter and Instagram at BillboardChris, and they can contribute to my cause through my website, billboardchris.com.
You guys, if you enjoyed watching these conversations today, please make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe for more videos, and hit that bell notification button so you're notified next time I post. We'll catch you guys in the next video.
Social worker, so I work with students K to 5. So it's more so just educating. So if there's anything you would like to share,
Yeah.
because I do have students that sometimes will have identity things going on, and obviously my job is to support them from a school standpoint.
And really quick, before you get started, I just want to clarify, you want him to kind of start with his point before you kind of give your perspective on this, is that correct?
I don't want to say that I have an opinion yet.
Okay,
I'm
that's
educating
totally
myself so that I
can do my quick spiel.
You're talking to the best guy that travels the world talking about this topic, so go for it. Chris, take it away.
Sure. So yeah, since September 2020, I've been traveling North America. I went to the UK on one trip recently as well, just having conversations out on the street. So here's the deal. We got all these kids today with this condition that we call gender dysphoria, which is essentially it's just self-loathing. These kids have they have some other mental health comorbidity going on. There might have been abuse or trauma. There might have been sexual abuse, some other mental health problems. There's cutting, there's eating disorders, whatever. For some reason, these kids aren't comfortable.
Okay.
A lot of these kids historically have grown up to be gay. So a lot of gay men, if you ask them when they were younger, maybe they were more feminine. Maybe they played with the girls more. That's fine. My position is there's no right way to be a boy or a girl. You're beautiful just as you are. No drugs or scalpels needed. But there's this ideology being taught in schools, it's all over social media, it's coming out of academia, and it's teaching these kids that they have a gender identity, which might be different than their sex. So what is a gender identity? No one can ever really tell me. But when you look at some of the resources that the actors produce, like the most popular one, it's called this genderbread person. You might have seen it. It's a gingerbread man.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
And I know there's a lot of vocab that's changing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's all activist vocab, honestly. But the genderbread person defines your gender identity as being based on your personality, your job, hobbies, likes, dislikes, roles in society, and expectations of one. So what does your job have to do with your gender? Nothing. What do your hobbies or your likes have to do with your gender? Absolutely nothing. We've got the Boston Children's Hospital, which is now the second-ranked pediatric hospital in the country. It was number one. But they have one of the most prestigious gender clinics in America. And the director of that gender clinic, they produced all these videos. And the director, her name's Jeremy Carswell. She says that things like a little girl trying to pee standing up, a boy who doesn't want to get a haircut, playing with the opposite gender toys, and maybe trying on a sibling's clothing, these are all signs that your child is transgender and can be treated. No matter which way you slice it, all this ideology comes down to is sexist, aggressive stereotypes. And instead of telling our children they're beautiful just as they are, these children are being taught that they might have been born in the wrong body. What an abusive thing to tell a child. Can you imagine someone telling you that you were born wrong? That you should have been a boy? Nonsense. Just because you're a tomboy, maybe? More than half the women growing up today are tomboys. And the kids that end up in these gender clinics, and we know this from their own statistics, like in England, there's this gender clinic where all the kids went to. It's called the Tavistock. They have a wait list of 8,000 children right now. But 35% of the children there have moderate to severe autism. And if you include the mild cases, it goes about 50%. Tons of these kids historically grew up to be gay. The majority of kids with gender dysphoria grew up to be gay. But we also know that when you just left kids alone and let them grow up, that almost all of them grew out of it, and it went away. And so people like my buddy Mike here, grew up to be the beautiful gay man that he is.
So beautiful.
He is very beautiful.
But if he was growing up today, he might be led to believe that he has a gendered soul, like he's really a girl inside, and that he won't find true happiness unless he goes on puberty blockers, estrogen, and gets surgery.
So you're not denying that trans people exist. It's more so just
My position
children
is that,
starting from before 18, before they're able to make their own.
yeah, now if an adult wants to call themselves trans, I mean, it's really just a label. Transition is something you do, it's not something you are. But no, trans kids, no. They're called girls and boys. And they're going through a natural stage of identity formation. We should leave them alone, especially when there's so much indoctrination going on. It's not all education in the schools anymore, it's indoctrination. And we just need to leave the kids alone, let them grow up, let them figure themselves out, give them the body positive message that they're beautiful just as they are. Because changing the body of a child, stopping their physical development with experimental drugs that have never been approved for this purpose, in my opinion, that's child abuse.
And I'm always like scrolling on TikTok and just looking at different things. And I have seen a lot of people detransitioning. Like, so they're older and they realize that they want to detransition back into their original sex that they identified. So it's just very interesting.
And maybe we could touch on some of the negatives in that aspect of what the process is to detrans. I know we know a handful of transgender individuals that are detransitioning.
One that's very well known in the country right now, she's been testifying at legislatures all across the states. Chloe Cole. This is a girl, she had autism, she had some abuse and some trauma. At 13, they put her on puberty blockers, testosterone. And at 15, she had a double mastectomy.
15?
Yeah. And now, because she was on testosterone for a few years, she doesn't know if she can have kids. She's still having problems related to the double mastectomy.
Yeah.
She's 18 now. She's suing. Another girl, Layla Jane, same lawyer, Harmeet Dillon, is the lawyer. She had her breast cut off when she was 13. They put her on puberty blockers, testosterone at the age of 12. These are babies.
Yeah.
I have an 11 and 13-year-old girl. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
What are we doing to these kids just because they're having a hard time in life? We're now telling them they were born wrong? It's so abusive. This used to affect a handful of kids. Now we've got 300,000 children between the age of 12 and 17 reported by the New York Times that have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. That's just the actual diagnoses for insurance purposes. It doesn't include the other cases we don't even know about. So this has exploded. And it's this really negative message that children are born wrong. That's just ideological nonsense.
Very valid. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you, any feedback about what he had to say? Or I know you just wanted to kind of hear what he had to say, but any feedback or any response
I think what you're saying is very valid. I mean, kids are going to go through, or just people in general, just going to go through different stages in their life. I don't want to invalidate that if someone feels like they were born, that's not the case. But maybe waiting until they're a little bit older. And then I also heard on the flip side is that if a boy wants, just the physical changes in puberty, that's why the puberty blockers, because that can cause depression or that can cause, suicide ideations and things like that because their body is changing in a way that they don't want it to change.
Yeah.
So
Puberty's a tough time, right?
Yeah.
I give public speeches and stuff now, and I normally ask the women in the room, I did this last night at a talk I gave, how many women here love going through puberty? Guess what? Not one hand's gone up in the air yet. And I've asked this of thousands of people. So it's a tough time, especially for girls, because they're getting sexualized. Their innocence kind of disappears a lot more for girls than it does for boys.
Yeah.
We just got bigger and stronger. Girls are now getting bad looks from men and intent from men. They don't like that. Their bodies are changing.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
But leave them alone. They're going to grow into their bodies. They're going to become comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
And what's the greatest joy for most adults? It's having a family. It's becoming a parent. And that's being taken away from these kids because these drugs and hormones combined are sterilizing the children.
Yeah.
And how can they possibly consent to any of this? They're just kids.
Yeah. I'm very curious where this is gonna head in the future. So
it'll for children, this will be banned 100% because there's no good argument for it. There's absolutely no good argument for it. I mean, some of these kids still believe in Santa Claus and they're like, hey, let's go down the path of sterilizing myself.
Yeah.
They're mature enough to go through that. Even if they have the counseling, even if they have the conversations, they could change their mind. They're children.
Right.
But that's top word right here. this is the big focus. Children cannot consent. We're not talking about what adults want to do within their own lives,
Right.
any of that. We're talking about children. We're trying to protect children here. So
And I can respect that.
fair enough.
Thank
Seems
you so much.
pretty reasonable take, huh?
Yeah,
Reasonable take.
Absolutely.
That was a beautiful conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you.